Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I will start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Bit different today. Today I'm joined by Matt Elwell. Now, Matt Elwell, I first come across from a lady called Jed Duncans, who helped us with our book, Selling in the Motor Trade. And she said, listen, you've got to go and speak to Matt at some point. And I went and had a look at Matt, got his book there, okay, Start with the Close. And I thought, great, we need to get Matt on the motor trade, on the podcast and talk about maybe not just the motor trade, but selling in general. So Matt, welcome aboard to the podcast.
Good morning, mate. How you doing? The book is called Open with a Close, but I'm happy.
Start with close. Open with close. We've got to get that right to start with. Listen, you're speaking of the motor trade, guys. So we'd have to start off with saying, what was the first car that you had, Matt?
Mate, firstly, I am the world's, when it comes to cars, I'm not your man. I'm so rubbish at cars. I'm into people and experiences. So I'll probably just turn the whole audience off. My first car was an absolute banger. Little old blue Polo that me and my mum shared. And I used to sell photocopiers and do like cold door knocking in Walsall, Birmingham, years and years and years ago, about 11 stone ago. And I used to drop my mum off in my little old banger and then carry on to Walsall. And the number of times it didn't get me there, it was unbelievable.
Well, listen, what I love is you won't turn our audience off at all, because we always say on the podcast, this is not a selling business or selling cars. It's a people business. Yeah. And I've got to tell you, brand new salespeople come to the motor trade all the time and say, hey, why do you want to be in the motor trade? I love cars. It's almost like, mate, this is not, I got to tell you, cars kind of bore me now because I've been around them so long. Okay.
It's one of them things, isn't it? I think, I don't know if it's controversial or not. I get this a heck of a lot where people say you've got to be you've got to know the product inside out to be amazing at sales. And the truth is, of course, it's going to help to have, good general knowledge and stuff. But we have specialists within organizations for the specialist stuff later on. But when it comes to selling, it actually doesn't matter really what you know, does it? It matters what the person that's looking to buy knows initially. And I think a lot of people get that the wrong way around.
In every industry. I mean, Google has been invented now. The average customer does, something like 30 hours of research before they walk in, phone in an email. Why are we just saying, hey, listen, what's about that car that put on your shopping list? What was about that car that caught your attention there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think why, it's a why, isn't it? I walked into a showroom, a car showroom, about 3.5 years ago. And for the first time in my adult life, I actually wanted a specific make and model of car. And I'll tell you why. I speak in public, and one of the ways I'm able to share my information is, to audiences, and that's really helped us build our company. And I used to move around Great Britain quite a lot and used the car, my own car, to drive around, and would use it for business and that 2 or 3 hours in the car on my own, I could get a lot done actually on hands-free and talking to prospects and building relationships, all that kind of stuff. So I was happy to drive around, and I thought, do you know what? If I'm going to do this amount of driving, I'm like most people I'm like mid-late 40s, and I've got a bad back, and I've got a bad knee, and I played rugby and all that kind of stuff. I was like, do you know what? I am going to get a really nice, comfortable vehicle so that I can move around and do some business. So I walked into the showroom and literally I did my research, like you said. I don't think it was 30 hours, but it's probably I want that one, right? So I've organised all my finances. I know what I'm doing. I've worked out how I'm going to do it. I walk in and I said to the guy, I said, I'll have that one. And he went, no, I wouldn't have that one.
Lovely.
And I went, no, no, oh, that one, I'll have that one there, right there in the middle. And it was the perfect color. It was brand new. It was that one. No, he said, people like you don't want that one. I said, when you say people like me, what do you mean exactly? And look, I'm a little, I like to fly the flag for the slightly bigger man. I'm a bit tubby. I'm thinking, is he referring to me being a bit big, or what's he talking about here? People like you. And instantly, my back's up now. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm annoyed.
I'm
I'm
still
going,
confused. People like you, people from Birmingham. What does he mean?
what does he mean? Yeah, so I'm sort of checking myself in the mirror and thinking, well, have I got something on my head? Am I injured? What does he mean? So I said, no, I've checked it out. I want that. He went, no, no, no. And I can't say the model out because it will be
Yeah,
unfair.
yeah.
But let's just call the model that he was recommending XYZ. He went, no, no. He said, you don't want that one. He said, people like you need an XYZ. And I was out. I was like, mate, I'll leave it. And I just walked out.
Wow. And did you get that from a different dealership, the one you actually wanted,
No,
though?
here's the
No?
reason, right? So, and look, maybe this is one of the reasons, this is not an accusation, why certain businesses are maybe a bit lazier than I can afford to be when I'm selling my products and services. Like, there just isn't enough competition. I couldn't go anywhere else to buy it. Well, I could, but it would have massively inconvenienced me. And also maybe the guy was just having a bit of a bad day. So it was local to me. I like to buy locally. So I did actually go back
Mm.
twice, and I still bought the car off somebody else. So I don't know if he was on commission, but if he was, he lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say it's in the motor trade. After COVID, there was a real supply issue. You couldn't get cars, there's semiconductors and so forth.
Yeah.
And the sales process, Matt, unfortunately went out the window because the sales process was kind of like a Rolex watch. If you want one, you got to beg for one.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the arrogance was there. And it's like, so do you want that? If not, I got four other people who want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's
Yeah.
happened is the motor trade has changed now. They found a whole lot of semiconductors. We got to get back to basics and slow the process down. And it's
Yeah.
what we talk about day in, day out. But
I
listen,
love that.
you
I just
mentioned
want to say, I just want to say something
yeah.
really quickly because you've really sparked some off. I love that, and what I love about it is this: I'm a rugby man, and I love sport, rugby, cricket. I watched the All Blacks train years and years and years ago at Worcester Rugby Club. I was a young man, and the All Blacks' greatest sporting institution there is surely on the planet. These guys are like revered around the world, and they work to like really high values and standards, and they're amazing humans, right? Great sports people. They represent their nation. It's awesome. So I'm watching them. I'm expecting them to like run around, throwing things out the back of the run and over their head and all that. No, they turned up like a machine and just did the basics like at pace. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. I was like, we do that grid at work at rugby club. We do that, but we don't do it like that. And I remember that was when I first learned that like the philosophy that masters never don't do the basics. Like if you're a master at something, you just do the basics every single time. And I think, I know you and I share many philosophies that are similar. And, when it comes to a professional salesperson or somebody that's got a team, if you're the leader of the team, I'm going, how about we just get everybody doing all the little things really well, and then just allow the human to human interaction, the connections, trust the fact that the buyer's got loads of information and allow all that stuff to happen, but just do the basics really well. And I think I have to say, the reason why we've got training companies is because not enough companies train their people to do the basics in sales.
This is so true. Listen, anyone listening to this who's brand new, listen to what Matt's saying. Be brilliant at the basics in a sales process. Get to know your customer. There's 3 sales on your sales. Sell yourself first. Okay. Don't worry about the car yet. Open people up. Get to know them there. Be brilliant at building rapport. Be brilliant at asking those questions. Great questions. Open people up there, and just be brilliant at the basics. And also managers, listen to this. Be brilliant at the basics. We all know that the number of demonstrations we do improves the number of cars we sell. Don't try and sell the car before you've raised the desire in the car. Those days are gone. Be brilliant at the basics, which is so true. Listen,
Mate, I say to my team all the time. I go, look, if you were brutally honest with yourself, I go like, what the last 10 times you did business with somebody, if you just spend a few minutes and think about across the board, what were the trends? What were the little things that have to happen? What were the little touch points? Like, what were the conversations that need to happen before somebody's like, yeah, I mean, it's all good. Let's go. Like, the process that you can repeat is where all the hard work happens, as far as I can tell. And then the exchange of contract really should be sort of elegant, um, transactional, like that. That's just the little bit at the end that, if you're getting all the problems here, you're doing something wrong, aren't you?
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah. The deal should be well and truly done by that stage there. You
Yeah.
can't close something that hasn't been opened up properly.
No.
Listen, I want to know about your starting into the world of selling. Okay, so you told us a little bit there about photocopiers. Is that right? In Wolverhampton, is that where you
Yeah.
started to cut your teeth in the world of selling?
In Warsaw, well, do you know what? I think actually it was before that. When I was 11, I wanted to earn money,
Mhm.
and I got a job on the milk round. And the local milkman's a guy called Johnny Webb. He's like really old-fashioned, brilliant, traditional milkman. And he used to start his round at 1:15 a.m. and it'd
Mhm.
be finished at 6:15 a.m. Now, when I first started working for him at 11, I used to help on a Thursday and Friday afternoon, collected empty bottles and all this kind of stuff. And as I grew, I got a bit older, he gave me the responsibility. He gave me a little brown satchel with some cash in it, some notes, and then in the front, like some 10p's and 20p's and 50p's and 1p's, like a little brown satchel. And I had to collect the milk money on Thursday afternoons and Friday afternoons. And it was actually, for a young lad, it was such a great life skill because I learned two things about money. Number one, the rule was, he used to call me Math. He used to say, look, Math, here's the rule. He said, you've got exactly £40 float. He said, and if there's one penny missing at the end, I'm knocking out your wages. Now, I
Mhm.
only got £5 a week.
Yeah.
So like, if I was 10p short, that was quite a lot, really, wasn't it? So,
Yeah.
so the first thing I learned about money was like, straight away I could sense he'd obviously been, had bad experiences in the past with people
Yeah.
stealing him. So that was interesting. But the second interesting thing was particularly men. I know this is a bit of a generalization, but some men were really mean to me. Like I'd go over and I'd say, good evening, I've come to collect your milk money. And they go, how much is it? And I go, and they'd have like a thing with the number. They already knew.
Yeah.
Like, it's £5.15. And they go, I've only got a fiver. You could chuck the 15 in.
Yeah.
I stand there going,
No.
well,
No.
no, because I'll have to pay for that. No, no, you're fine. Go on, just knock it off. No, but actually, that's really difficult because it feels a bit of conflict, doesn't it? And like, you don't want to upset your elders and all that. But it really taught me like a great lesson about how humans can be around money and finances. And I think that was the start of me being fascinated with communication and like tone and body language. It's just the whole thing was pretty critical to me and interesting to me. And then I got my first job. My actual first job was cold calling, selling
Wow.
ladies sanitary wear in Birmingham, and I was so crap at that. It was unbelievable. 150 compliment slips a day.
Right.
I think I lasted about 17 or 18 weeks. It was
Okay.
it was awful. But you know what? Again, um, you know, I think they say somebody like Peter Kay, who's a great comedian. He used to go and work in the pubs and clubs of the north of England and get things thrown at him on a Wednesday night. So again, that was my baptism, really.
That's where you cut your teeth on it. It often amazed me. I've always started the motor trade. So I started when I was 17 years old. So I don't know any other industry there, but I hear stories about people selling gas door to door and knock on the door to door. And I tell you what, learning resilience, learning that some will, some won't. So what next?
Brutal.
That
It's
must be
brutal.
a great way to learn and having to build rapport very, very quickly then.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think, look, I'll tell you what I learned really quickly is the less talking you do at the beginning, the better.
mm,
So you've got to get the other person talking. And that's actually, although it was a really difficult experience, what I worked out quickly was if you can ask an absolute banger of a question, if you can get a question in really quickly that's got the best interest of the prospect at heart, and if you can get like out of their brain what they can see, if you can get them talking about their image, the image they've got of the product or service or the result that they'd get, it's a game changer. And I'm sure everybody listening to this who studies selling and communication stuff already knows this. But the word prospect, I had a look into the word prospect not long ago, and there's two. There's the whole prospecting in the diamond and gold industry and mining and all that.
Mhm.
But the other thing that it means, I think it shows up in, I think it was 16th century English, if I remember rightly. Fact check me.
Okay.
But it kind of means the summary of the word prospecting or prospect means mental image of something in the future, which is interesting, isn't it? You know, for us salespeople, you know, because you go, well, like the salesperson that just starts talking and like being sick on your shoes.
Yep.
The problem is that they've only got to say one thing that you're not thinking or you're not visualizing because you're not the expert and they've lost you. So actually, when you realize the skill is to ask them, like what result they're looking for, like you said earlier, what are you trying to achieve? How do you think we might be able to help you? And literally stop talking. If you can do that, and I learned that when I was knocking doors. I used to say things like, you know, at first I'd pile in, I'd be like, are you interested in ladies' sanitary wear? No, go away. Bang. And then I quickly realized that that wasn't going to work. And I'd be like, hey, I really need a bit of help. I'm like, yeah, what do you need? And straight away, that already has got a different energy to it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's all them sort of going, what do you need? It's just different. And I fluked this, you know, I just fluked it. So then I'll be like, look, when it comes to health and wellness of your female staff, and in particular, the hygiene in the female toilets, who is responsible in your organization for purchasing any of the products or services you have for that? And just straight away, it's a question, and you're into a dialogue, and that was a big learning for me.
Well, listen, before you started the Closing Academy, and I want to get to that later on and what your motivation was. It always fascinates me what people like you think, let's go out and teach people how to do it. But before then, were there any mentors, anyone that you looked up to when in the world of selling that you thought, Bob or Jenny, really, I've learned a lot from them?
No, I'd never heard of any mentors. I think one of the word that gets bandied around a lot is guru.
Mm.
Never heard of any of those things. The people that influenced me the most was my first, well, my first two bosses influenced me the
Yeah,
most. First,
okay. That's what I
the
mean by someone you looked up to then, that you
yeah,
learned from.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, yeah. So the main person that I learned from, I had two great bosses,
Mm.
and they were completely different in the photocopying world. One was a guy called David Thompson, just passed away recently, sadly, and he was very much what I would call an old-fashioned salesperson.
Mhm.
Features, advantage, benefits, and he
Mhm.
was big into something that I sometimes hear now, the spin selling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
massive on that. And he was like circle back around and go back in and all that. That was him. And there was so many positive traits in there that I was able to pick up. There was also the late night drinking, like turning up smelling of booze, all the stuff that I knew wasn't good.
Mm.
That was him, right?
Yeah.
The other guy was a guy called David Hodgson, and he also sadly passed recently, 81 years old. Now he was a people person. He was relationships, wonderful communication, great memory. Like whenever he was asking questions, they weren't disingenuous. They were designed to really understand you.
Mm.
And that was so for me, I had like a brilliant communicator, an amazing human being, somebody who cared about other people, genuinely interested. And I had somebody who'd got great sales skills. And that combination really stood me in good stead. Also, my dad and my brother in our tile and bathroom showroom were completely opposite. So my dad was the engineer, the tiler, the technical guy.
Yeah.
And often, and this again might be controversial, I'm not trying to upset anyone, it's a bit general, but often the person that's really technical can make sales like quite difficult
Mm.
because the technicalities should come when the person's purchased the
Yep.
solution. And I always say, like, never solve anything during the sales process. My dad got that bit a bit wrong, but what he was great at was he had knowledge and he had good information and
Mhm.
he cared about customers. So
Mm.
that was good. And then my brother, on the other hand, was like, you know, much more dynamic, really visionary. Like he was a designer, so he could imagine what it looked like for you, really. And again, I often found myself somewhere in the middle. So those four men definitely sort of, you know, helped me find my own little thing in the middle of all that, I think.
Yeah, this is a shameless plug for our first 90-day program. Now, Matt, we often say that the skills we learn in our first 3 months, good and bad, lasts us for the rest of our career. Okay, if that's in selling, I imagine if you're going into any other career, what you learn right from the beginning lasts for a long time. Can I ask you, is there anything that you learned in your first 90 days when you were selling, either when photocopiers there or maybe the door-to-door stuff, that is relevant today who's someone who's just starting in the world of selling?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you are. This is on this podcast, of course you can.
Don't bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, don't fucking bullshit, because the problem is, like, if you, like you just said, right, we live in an age now where there's so much information out there. It is unbelievable. We have to remember this, though. Often the information that is out there is not in order and sequence. So to a master, or to someone that knows their industry, you can get the bits of information and put it in order and sequence. If you're the end user and you've just got this big blob of information, you can't, because you're not a master. So we do live in a world where there's information, and we have to trust the fact that with search engines and things like that, our customer base, people that are looking to buy, have done and have got lots of information, right? So when they turn up to the salesperson, it's absolutely critical that salesperson doesn't screw it up and doesn't say things that are not true, over-exaggerate, try and technically sell somebody onto something without understanding that human being. So the number one rule, and I learned this in the tile and bathroom showroom, I haven't got enough information for me not to try and wing it when I first started. So I was winging it, and I kept getting caught out. I was basically just bullshitting and lying and saying shit that wasn't true. And I quickly worked out that if you're going to do that, you're screwed. And also, there's no values in that. There's no integrity in that. It's not fun to be at work and feel like a fraud. So I decided I'm not doing it like that. And the first thing I did, mate, was I said, look, I'm never going to lay a tile. I'm never going to mix a tub of adhesive. It's not me. I don't want to do it. I want to sell it, and I'll sell the services and run the business. So the very least I can do is spend the next few weeks and months learning from our skilled craftsmen. And I laboured for some of the lads. I got up at 5, 6 in the morning. I mixed the adhesive up. I didn't want to, but I just wanted to learn the language. And I listened to my dad, and I asked lots of questions. And I gave myself a 7 out of 10 knowledge of the products and services, and then made sure that when somebody moved towards me, I'd actually got a sales process, which is like, number one, find out what they want, find out what they need, find out what they're trying to achieve, find out why, like all of that kind of stuff, and then take them through a set of questions to get to a point where they've got no questions left, and you can give them a choice of, you can experience the service that way or that way. Like, what questions have you got? And I think for anybody listening to this, if you've got a team, if you're a leader, if you're an individual selling motor vehicles or financing or whatever it might be, if you're blagging it and winging it, you will get found out.
Yeah, and listen, I just want to say, anyone can sell one car. We don't want to do that. We want to sell people their second car, third car. That's where people treat it as your own business within a business in the car sales world, because it is. And it's actually, the people who make great money in the motor trade, they stay in one place for a long time, and you don't get that by bullshitting people.
Well, the bloke who ended up selling me my car after my bad experience, we've bought 4 more since then.
Yeah.
And the one who did sell it to me found out, why do I want the car? And for me, it was a business reason. So he was like, great, I get it. And then he asked me a few more questions. Then he found out my wife needed a new car. We got 2 young kids. And we travel quite a bit, and asked me about the spec and where we travel and all that kind of stuff. And then we bought another one for my wife. In the back of the car that my wife bought were presents for both my children. And they were presents that were relevant to answers that my wife had given about what my kids like.
Yeah.
And of course, my wife was like, she didn't care about the car. She's like, wow, like, he was really attentive and he's listened to my answers. And then we bought 2 more since after those 2, we bought another 2. And in fact, I've got a new car on the drive, an electronic one that I just bought off the same people 3 weeks ago.
People buy people. We say it again
That's
and
5 vehicles
yeah,
in 3.5 years.
and that's what you need. You don't get that by bullshitting people. You really don't. In fact, I want to get your views now. We've got lots of young people coming into the motor trade. And we always say, hey, why do you want to be a motor trade? Oh, listen, I love cars. I love cars. It's like, no, this is a people business, not a car business. Yes, of course, cars the final product. I don't know if you loved tiles, did you, Matt? Okay.
Oh,
It can't be that. It's that people side of it there that's there. So I want to get your views on, I get lots of people saying, oh, The Wolf of Wall Street. I love that movie. Oh, I want to be here. Jordan Belfort, he's my man. And Matt, every time I say, really? Come on, let's think this through. He made his money out of ripping off people. He made his money out of ripping off pensioners. Okay, it was grandmas, granddads. Okay, selling stocks. You've seen the movie. In stocks that were really, really bad. He earned 100% commission on what he was selling, grandma. He worked in an environment where there wasn't Google reviews, Trustpilot surveys. He did it in America, where there's what 250 million people. He's not doing it in Birmingham, where you upset someone in the Audi network in the vehicle park, you're going to upset them forever. Is there a place for the Jordan Belfort? Great movie, by the way, but is that representative of real world selling in your view?
well, Matt, I don't know. I think, as far as I can tell, there are definitely, and I think, Mr. Belfort's definitely one of them where, I've read his book, and there is some phenomenal information in there, no question about it. Look, to me, it's all about motives and it's all about values. So, I can't speak on anybody else's behalf, but from my point of view, whenever I'm in a sales conversation, the number one principle I have is that it's not my job to get them to buy. Like I'm the conduit. I'm the professional salesperson that can answer, ask, guide. I see myself as a guide more than anything else. So I'm not trying to get anyone to do anything. And I think to me, that's like a really important core value. I'm like, look, if I can help you and you genuinely are looking for some assistance, I'm your man. And if you're not, I'm cool. I can send you to somewhere else. And I think that's one of my guiding principles, that I'm not, and again, I say it to anybody who's listening, like, it's not your job to get someone to buy. If you're trying to get someone to buy, in my view, you're doing something horribly wrong. I think you've got it the wrong way around, because at some point there's going to be a bit of conflict. And I'm looking for everything that's non-conflict. I'm looking for collaboration. I'm looking for powerful conversation. I'm looking to gather information before I decide. And that's the key thing. Like, think bomb disposal expert. The bomb disposal expert doesn't just turn up and start ordering people around and do this, do that. It's like, hang on, just before we do anything, what do we know? What's the situation? Tell me everything. Tell me everything we've got first. And I think, from my point of view, I know there are loads of amazing trainers and other people out there that have got their own philosophy, but that's my philosophy, and that's how I teach it.
Yeah, I just think even Jordan, what he would train now is not there. I've been through a few things with him, and it's great for the movie, great for the book there. But in this day and age, is that really what we want to do? It goes back to, we want to sell people not one car, their second, the third, the fourth car. So Matt, you've seen lots of really great salespeople in your time. You've trained them, you've worked with them. What are some of the character traits now that really separates the good from, well, the great from the good?
Yeah,
the exception.
It's interesting. I think, well, there's a few character traits that separate the great from the good. Some of the things I've already said. Like, you could just tell straight away when you're dealing with a pro, because they don't talk, they ask. Like, great salespeople, great communicators, they ask great questions, and you notice it. The salesperson, you walk into a showroom, the salesman like, "Hey, good morning." You're like, "Here we go."
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody that's got, I always say elite closers, like, they move slowly. They're committed to listening. They're committed to understanding. They're confident, structured, organized. They're not all over the place. You can just notice that you're dealing with a pro. I think that whole sort of thing is obvious to me. I think the other thing is that commitment to actually understanding the other person. And again, like all of us that listen to this podcast, and there's loads of viewers and listeners to this podcast, by the way, well done, top work. Like we all know that when the other person in a sales conversation genuinely appears to have your best interests at heart, not the whole how's your family, how's the dog, build rapport bollocks.
Mm.
I'm talking about, right, come on, what do you need? How can we help? What do you need from us? Like what are you trying to achieve? What results are you looking for? Like if you can go there, again, what I notice is buyers do have buying patterns and we're nervous. And I always ask this question in my live trainings. I go, like, show me an elbow if you're on Zoom, or just wave at me in the audience if you've ever had a terrible sales experience. And everyone's like,
We all have, yep.
There's a
Yep.
lot of crap out there, isn't there? So,
Yep.
so I think, look, the thing that separates great salespeople, great communicators out, are all those guiding principles and a high skill set. It's so obvious when you're dealing with somebody that's well trained, they're aligned on values, they're not trying to do you over, they've got your best interests at heart. There's a simple, obvious process. It's when it feels natural, and that's when that's where the best results come.
Yeah. So I want to dig into why someone like you and I goes from the world of selling and decide, right, I want to start my own business. Okay. What happens? What thought process happens there, Mike?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm quite happy to share this. I had a small family business for 16 years, and for the first 12 years, my brother and I and my dad had a shared vision on the business, and we actually ended up renting out. We long story short, we bought a piece. Long story longer, actually. We bought a piece of land in 2005, an old derelict garage, and we used to rent a tile showroom off somebody else, right? So we bought a piece of land, knocked this old garage down, and we built a 5,000 square foot, two-story, all singing, all dancing showroom. We invested in the business. It was a massive investment. It was a massive investment, and many of the dealers will know what I'm talking about. Like a beautiful big showroom in the south of Birmingham, small family business. It was a massive investment, and 2008 there was something called the credit crunch.
Oh,
And
yes.
we
World
were
winter
in
shift.
the middle of the credit crunch. This is a time for the younger listeners on here.
Yeah.
The banks went bust. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So like that happened to us in right in the middle of that recession. We were investing. Anyway, long story longer, we traded through it. We did really well, and we entered into a discussion with a large supermarket chain, and eventually we negotiated a 20-year lease for 2/3 of that building approximately. And my tile and bathroom showroom with my brother and my dad, we had quite a few staff and fitters. The operation reduced in size by 2/3.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this amazing rental contract. As we speak, we're sort of 12 years, nearly 12 years. In fact, 12 years tomorrow into a 20-year lease for the things, which is really good, solid business decision. So around mid-30s, we downsized and the business was profitable. It was all working. But I just fell out of love with my business, and I hung in there for ages. And people were saying to me, oh, you've got a great life, but inside I was absolutely dying. I was bored shitless. I wasn't being challenged. I was blaming the world that I
Mm-hmm.
was bored, and then I realized I was the problem. So without being too morbid, my uncle, God bless him, he retired after 40 years as a dentist. Wonderful man. He left South Africa. He fought against apartheid in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great man. And he came here with nothing to the UK, and he built this amazing dentist business with my aunt. And he really worked hard. And he's a very wealthy man when he retired. And he died like within 12, 13 weeks of retiring. And he died of a really aggressive brain tumor. He's a great man. Peter Wintermore, his name was. And I watched him pass really quickly. He was fit. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. He was a marathon runner. He was a spiritual man. He was a man of God. He was a peaceful person. And this terrible brain tumor got hold of him, and it killed him really quickly. and he passed with so much dignity and grace. He was such a great person. But I can remember thinking at the time, if this happened to me right now, I was about 36, 37. All I could think of was, what would people say about me? And all I kept coming back to was that I didn't add up to very much. And I was like, I've got to change. I need to do something else. So for me, my leaving the family business and doing something else was really quite a profound moment in my life. And my brother bought my shares out of our trading company, and that gave me a bit of freedom to not have to rush to make any decisions. And I started, after a few months, I started doing just a bit of consultation here and there. And the first person I consulted for, he had got a small team of salespeople, four people, and they were doing quite well, turning over nearly £1 million a year. And he just said, look, I know you are, you're a local person, you've got this business, you're doing a bit of consulting. I mean, I'm interested to know what your experience could bring my team. Now, I was really nervous because I didn't know whether what I'd learned in the retail industry would be transferable.
Mm-hmm.
And his industry was completely different. And it was totally transferable. And he basically got a lot of people that were on the brink of buying, but didn't really have a process to exchange and to close out things, Very good at selling, but not very good at closing. So my framework that I hadn't really created then, just my information, I taught it to his team, and things went really well, really quickly. And to be honest, Simon, what happened to me is because of the person that employed me, he's really well connected. All of his people were going, or all of his peer group were saying, hang on a minute, you're flying at the moment. What's changed? And then, he said, well, I've got this consultant in, and that was it. It was a fluke, really. And then people were looking for my information, and my little consultancy business just went like that straight away. And that was the start of it for me. And I never really set this training company up to train individuals initially. It was really just to get paid some consultancy fees and see if I could transfer some of my knowledge. So it was a bit of a fluke, really. And then, long story longer, my first client has a world, and his name's Nick James, puts on live events, teaches SMEs, and that's how I started this training company, really. Now, it's since grown from them. We teach teams around the world our philosophy, but that's how it started.
Yeah, can we get some specifics there? You said his team was very good at selling,
Yeah.
but not closing. There's lots of managers resonating with this because, Matt, we're in a situation we can love people up on that Audi Q5, and it's the one they want, but there's 130 other Audi dealers they can get it from. And we see lots of people struggle with the closing. Can you give us some specifics on what you teach about how you took his team from great at selling but not at closing? What did you what coaching, what advice do you give them?
Yeah, good question. So I think, firstly, to recognize that selling and closing are completely different, two completely different skills. One is opening and one is closing, and they're the opposite, which, the clue's in the name, really. They're completely opposite. So again, if you've got a team of openers, rapport builders and questioners, brilliant. But at some point, you've got to stop asking questions and start exchanging contracts. And knowing when to do that is the second key principle. It's like acknowledge they're different and then understand the time to stop selling and start closing. And I think the key thing, actually, the time to exchange a contract is when there are no questions left. That's the key thing. And most people don't have that skill. So most people are trying to close too early when they haven't earned the right. And by the way, when you just mentioned, I think you said an Audi Q5 or something, right?
It doesn't matter, the car, whatever. Yeah.
So when somebody walks into the car showroom, we all know that they can buy it online. We all know they can get it cheaper somewhere else. We all know that somebody will undercut us. So, none of those statements are reasons to not continue the conversation. So if somebody says to me, I could get it cheaper elsewhere, I go, damn right you can. A lot cheaper. So now we know that. Other than the money, give me 5 reasons why you're going to give me a chance today of doing some business with you. Again, it's we're looking for micro commitments. We're looking to find out, other than just the race to the bottom on the finances, what else they're looking for when purchasing a car. How important is aftercare service to you? How important is like this now? How important is this? Like you've got to find these things out, because we all know that somebody somewhere can do it for less. So the buyer knows that too. And I think, look, the last thing on this is, if you let somebody walk out the door that has shown massive interest, has shared all the information, that's highly qualified, that has interacted, and literally is in a position to make an informed buying choice. If you don't turn your courage dial up and find a way of elegantly asking for the business in a non-confrontational way, then what happens is you're going to watch buyers that should have bought with you walk out. And it's having the skill to ask a closing question, having earned the right.
Yes.
It's about timing, it's about respect, but it's just about asking the question. It's about asking the question.
It is absolutely earning the right to do that. You need to make sure the car is right before we get the numbers, because too many times we're trying to close people on the numbers and we're not even sure if that Audi Q5 is going to do the job they want. Do they prefer the X4? You got to make sure we've sold the car before we get the numbers. And
if it's all about the numbers, you're in trouble.
Oh, of course it is. Well, Matt, listen, just thank you so much for that. Hey, listen, here's a copy of Matt's book. I can't believe I pronounced it wrong before. I've actually got it here in my hand. Open with a Close. So listen, I urge you to go and find Matthew Elwell, okay, on LinkedIn, okay, or go and get a copy of Matthew's book, Open with a Close, at Amazon or wherever you can find it. Listen, thanks again. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.